I'm Charlotte,
I'm Megan.
And I'm Cianan.
and we're here to talk to you today about mental health, the access and wait times. So, let's get into it. The first question, why do you think mental health currently is so important?
I think everyone has mental health, not problems to say, but like issues. Like everyone struggles with it, especially now that it's more like accepted and not like stigmatized.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's always been important, but no one spoke about it before, like a couple years ago, really.
Would you say it's because it was more hidden than if you had like broken your leg and were on crutches?
Yeah, I think so.
Fairs. It's definitely, I think, more important now because so many younger people, as well as older people, are starting to realise that they might have it. And then it's kind of like, oh,
This is a problem.
yeah,
like,
what is this? How can I
Yeah.
kind of fix it?
Yeah, I think the representation is important. Like, I mean, like TV shows and films,
Yeah.
all including it more, and
It's a lot more talked about on the news as well. Whether they show it in kind of like a good or bad light, it's still talked about
it's
quite
still
a bit.
talked about, yeah.
So when we think about wait times, how long would you say do you think it takes? I'm moving the laptop away from you.
Okay.
You got to play the guessing game. How many weeks would you say it takes for a person between their referral appointment and their first appointment with a therapist? How long do you think they would have to wait? What would your ideal time be?
In an ideal world, like maybe a week.
Okay, how long do you think it would take someone?
I mean, I'd probably go at least 2 months, probably longer.
And that's about 8 weeks. Would you say 8
8
weeks?
weeks.
So, 1 in 4 mental health patients will wait at least 12 weeks before starting their first appointment after referral. So that's around 3 months. So you're kind of in a
Mhm.
similar ballpark.
Yeah.
So about 3 months at least before their first appointment. Many patients who wait those 12 weeks, around 2 out of 5 patients, will say that their mental health will decrease further. Why do you think that is?
Well, probably because they're not being seen by anyone, and it's been like, I guess, left alone.
Yeah.
With the right phrasing.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely one of the main things. Like, once you kind of are on that wait list, nothing else really comes your way. So you can't talk to, like, maybe not a therapist, but you can't talk to somebody who's still in a medical field.
Yeah.
So it makes it a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
That would definitely be one thought. So why do you think only 1 in 3 adults are currently getting treatment? Would you say it's because they don't want to wait 12 weeks? Do you think that's like the key?
Yeah, the wait
point.
times.
Yeah.
If you have to wait 3 months, then you might think, what's the point?
Yeah. I also think, even though it's being spoken about more, it's easier for adults to be like, I don't need help. Like, I can just go on with my life. Like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
When in reality, they might need to
might
make time for it.
Yeah. Definitely. It's quite hard as well because obviously a lot of people probably experience mental health like problems and they don't know what to do. And if you kind of are told, oh, just wait 12 weeks at least and then you can get help, I think by the 12 weeks either your issues would have gotten worse or your thoughts, but then also by that point I just wouldn't care for the therapy anymore.
Yeah.
Like if I said, oh my gosh, I think I need therapy in like the next 2-3 weeks or something because something's really bad in life, you know, I could just wait 12 weeks and then by that point be like, you know what, I'm over it. And I think that's, or like in 12 weeks time, you know, you could be going somewhere or doing something that's made you really happy and you're like, I don't need the therapy anymore because I'm fine now or fine at this current moment. And I think that doesn't help.
No.
So
The 12 week, that's with the NHS. Like, are there other
Yeah.
options?
there are
do you
definitely
think?
other options, but I think
They're just not accessible to everyone.
no, because obviously you can go to private therapy. I don't know the wait time for that. I don't think it's
But you imagine it's short.
Yeah.
yeah,
sure.
because you've got to pay,
Pay.
so it's that knock-on effect. And I know as well you can obviously get medication, but once you hit 19, you normally have to pay for that medication. So I know antidepressants are around £9.60 to £10,
That's a bit
which
That's-
ridiculous.
if you've got to pay that every 2 months, you just kind of
Yeah, you question whether it's worth it.
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's definitely something. I think the whole system kind of needs to be relooked at. But also as well, like from like a political view, you need like politicians to go and talk to therapists, people who are training, but also the patients. Because if you go to someone and you're like, if you just talk to, your family and your friends, then yeah, it hits hard. But if you don't really talk to other people, or you talk to someone who's never experienced it, then it probably won't affect you as much. Like if I just went up to someone and was like, oh, have you ever waited for therapy? And they go, no, I've never had it.
Yeah.
Then neither of you really care that much.
No.
So what do you think could be other available options, like outside the NHS or within the NHS? Like what could they do for, like, if you do have to wait 12 weeks, what could they do to kind of help you in those 12 weeks, would you
I
say?
think it's like as simple as just like having someone to talk to you while you wait, like a check-in, so to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first person you would think of contacting would be like a GP,
Yeah.
and just trying to have like regular check-ins with them. But then that also sort of depends on like just general GP like wait times, and trying to get an
Yeah.
appointment with a GP just for anything,
Yeah.
because like that's always a struggle.
I was gonna say that's a struggle if you've got like chicken pox at
Yeah.
the best of times. I think as well, so obviously a bit out there, but kind of, alcoholics have AA meetings. If you did like a meeting kind of once a couple of weeks for people in your area with mental health issues, even if you don't talk about the mental health issues, but you just go to
Yeah.
it and you can sit there for an hour and just be, either around people who experience something similar, or just something to like get you out of the house. Like I know like that is quite helpful sometimes, but just having that option, because if obviously you think like your whole world is ending and crumbling and you have no one to talk to, if you then someone turns around and says, come here at this time, meet with some people, that
Yeah.
might be really helpful,
Yeah.
especially whilst you're waiting.
Yeah, especially if you talk to someone who's like gone through something similar.
Other people as well literally like could be waiting at the same time as you.
Yeah.
Like there could be other people, and you can sit there and talk about how awful it is, or how much like you've been needing it, and kind of it might give you some peace of mind a bit.
Yeah, I think
But
also
just something.
like talking to people who you don't know, I mean like at all, like as well,
Yeah.
is often easier than talking to like family or friends. So
Yeah.
like I think that would be a good option if it was available.
So, do you think people have to wait longer than 12 weeks? And if you do, how much longer would you say they'd have to wait? So that's 3 months. Do you think people wait longer than that?
Yeah.
I imagine some people do.
How if I was to give you like a percentage, or you were to give me a percentage, how would you think if people had to wait? So do you think people would wait longer than 6 months?
In some cases, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think the percentage for that would be?
Maybe 5. Like
Okay.
you'd hope it's
Yeah.
a tiny amount.
What would you say if I told you that there are some patients who have to wait more than a year? What would you hope the percentage would be for that?
I would hope 0, but like
Well, that's clearly not.
No.
but it's clearly not yet.
Yeah.
So, some people will have to wait. So, 12% of people will have to wait longer than 6 months. And then 6% of patients will wait longer than a year.
Yeah, that's not
That's-
ideal.
But like, how do you think wait times could be like cut down then?
I mean, I don't know. The fact that you've got to wait like over a year for
Yeah.
something, like that to me, Like, that's shocking, because if you put
Yeah.
that into numbers, like, anytime it's a percent, it's not always... I feel like percentage sometimes doesn't hit you as hard as if you
No.
went, actually, that's like 500,000 people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I honestly think it's kind of... It's quite hard to say how you can reduce it. It's more kind of the strategies that you can create whilst you wait.
Right.
Because if you're left alone for a year and you're suicidal or you're having really bad depressing thoughts, you won't wait a year. I don't think,
No.
personally. I feel like that would be a real big struggle for you. And, you know, there's medications you can go on, but not everyone wants to go on medication. There's always the stigma around it, and, you know, that might be quite tricky for you to wait a year. But you don't really seem to have another option unless you want to then
Yeah.
pay for private therapy, and there needs to be kind of a range more of options kind of available to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also just... It needs to start at the top with the government,
Yeah.
politicians, like, actually putting time and money into
Into the
try and, like...
services.
Yeah.
Money mainly.
Money.
Well, the government did say, let me find it. They said in 2021, I think it was, they were going to put £2.3 billion a year into mental health services by 2024. So that's about £6.9 billion by the end of this year.
Yeah.
That they should have.
That they should have put in, and it would give around 2 million more people more help. How do you think that lines up? Do you think they've put that amount of money in? Do you think 2 million people will get the help they need?
Probably not, because we found out that more than 50% of people wait more than 15 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's December of 2023.
Yeah.
So if it's that bad then...
Yeah,
And
surely not a lot has changed
Yeah.
in, like, the last, like, 5-6 months.
I think definitely, I think it's hard, well, not hard, but I think because the government, obviously, all of them have so much money, if they need therapy, they can just go to a
Yeah.
private
Just
therapist.
Yeah.
And I think they don't actually understand the struggle as much.
No.
And obviously I know, like, everyone's entitled to their own political opinions, probably should put that out there, but in my eyes, like, they've got so much money, they can just go to the private therapy, and they don't think about kind of the other people.
Yeah.
But I think also what they've done is kind of put all these promises on the table and said, oh, we'll put £2.3 billion in for 3-4 years.
It gives people hope.
Yeah, and then you're kind of crushing it. But if you know you're not going to do that, if you know you can't do that with how much ever money you've got, then why not have just started with a smaller number but gone on for more years, you know,
Yeah.
or said by 2030, you know, we'll have put in 100 million, but actually there'll be so many more things, so many better things for you, instead of going, 3 years time we'll invest in, you know, nearly 7 billion, but actually we haven't really helped you that much.
Yeah. I think, like, they probably thought that just chucking money at it could solve the issue, when actually you need to think about how you're going to approach it, because it is such a complicated issue.
But it's also the wider things as well, like, you know, a lot of people, if they can't get a job, or you can't get a job, and then, you know, you become quite anxious because you can't pay your bills or something, like, there's so many, like, domino effects that can kind of affect your mental health,
Yeah.
but then affect your treatment. Because if you're an adult as well, and what you kind of find is, like, if an adult has to work 5 days a week for 40 hours a week or something, like, when do you have time to go to therapy? When, like,
True.
when do you have the time to sit down and actually go, oh my gosh, I actually think I'm quite anxious, you know, I need some
Yeah.
help? Or you just assume that, you know, you're fine because, you know, Saturday and Sunday you spend time with, you know, family or
Family, yeah.
friends, and you ignore the problem until it gets to a point where you're like, oh, that's a bit bad. Like, it's quite difficult.
Yeah, it's changing the system, basically, is the
Yeah.
main. It's like starting early, like, at a young age, making mental health, like, you should talk to someone.
Yeah, I think,
Do
like,
this.
not like teaching or like talking about it in schools from a young age,
Yeah.
so that
Because I can't lie. Like, when did you first know mental health was like a thing? Like, if you had to kind of like, not say, oh, June 2008, I was told, you know, what anxiety was. But if you had to say, like, a year of school, when would you kind of know roughly, oh, that's when I...
Like year 8 maybe, like secondary definitely.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, mine was a bit earlier, but
Well,
Yeah. No, that's fair.
but like, yeah. I mean, I think if you haven't actually gone through it yourself, then you wouldn't know until later on.
Definitely. Because the thing was as well, like, I experienced anxiety when I was little.
Yeah.
I just didn't know
I
what it
didn't know
was.
what it was.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So, like, I was such an anxious kid. I remember being, like, 4 or 5 and, like, so scared to go to my friend's house.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you why. But I just was like, oh my God, what if I go to their house and, like, something happens to me or something happens to my family whilst I'm gone? And was, like, so paranoid. And that's at, like, 4 or 5 years old. But you don't know what it is. So I just assumed
No.
everyone else did it.
Yeah, you assume it's normal.
Yeah. So then you kind of go, oh, well, if everyone else does it, then I can just live with it and just get on with my life. And then, you know, you talk to somebody when you're, like, 15 and you're like, oh, yeah, I experienced this. And they're like, oh, I didn't. And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't? I'm like, you didn't experience this. But no, I think don't be teaching it to kids at 4, you know.
No, that's a
No.
bit
They
early.
need,
but-
yeah, but, you know, if a parent can see the signs, or even getting to kind of 10, 11 years old and like that double digits, because as well, a lot of kids get anxious going to secondary school.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
change between
Yeah.
like year 6 and 7.
And I think that needs to be kind of talked about when you're kind of last year of primary going into secondary school and you're like, oh, bit anxious.
Yeah.